Welcome back to another installment of Getting Started with RightMatch. Those of you who don't know me already, I'm Scott Ponywaz, and I am one of our customer success team members. I'm excited to walk you through the next stage in getting started with RightMatch, which is how to create an interview. So the resumes have all been scored. We've got jobs posted. We've had your ATS integrated into RightMatch. Now's the time to start to let the platform shine. So we've started to get candidates in, and again, this is our demo instance, so a lot of these are fake candidates and information. However, the resume for Jonathan is a great match for this marketing director role that we had posted. Shows a lot of his experience as well as specific skills that align. We can even click in further to see more detailed insights about his 11 and a half years of marketing experience, his 8 years of B2B, his brand management, data analysis, project leadership expertise, all of that great information about this candidate's background. And when we're ready, we can actually go back to our applicant's dashboard and we're ready to send him an interview. So now that we're getting him flagged to move forward in the process, I am able to then create an interview using the marketing director role here. And so it's going to pull in our job description. It's going to take just a second to generate this all. So it's got a handful of these skills. I'll also add in Google Analytics, and we'll put expert and brand management, and we'll put intermediate, and I'll put paid Facebook marketing, and we'll say intermediate here. So this is John. If I wanted to, I could even upload a introductory video of myself saying, hey, welcome to RightMatch. This is the first step in the process. We're excited to have you as a part of the process, etc. And then you can also set expiration dates. You can toggle on coding exercises for developer roles, and you can choose whether or not to allow mobile devices. And the reason why it's able to be toggled on and off is if you wanted to use our trust management for analyzing whether people are using things like ChatGPT to answer questions or getting fed answers during the interview process through all other screens. So we don't allow that monitoring on mobile interviews. The other area that you can actually add in under the advanced options is accessibility. And you can also set different time limits for questions. And if you have additional sort of feedback, if you're experienced with LLMs, you can use some of those additional features down there below. So we've got all of our skills uploaded. If I had a previous marketing director role that I wanted to kind of base this interview off of, I could always use a previously saved template here, which I don't have yet. So what I'm going to do is I am going to let the magic happen thanks to RightMatch and generate my interview questions. And so while the system is thinking, we are going to start to have those interview questions generated, which are all able to be edited and adjusted. So as you can see, some of those key interview skills that we wanted to use, we're starting to see some of the keywords of those tools shine through. So, Google Analytics, HubSpot, how do you integrate HubSpot with Google Analytics? Thinking about this being our first interview, I really only want to make it a handful of questions to keep it fairly concise. And so I just really want to get a high-level read on somebody. I don't need a ton of questions, so I'm going to just delete a handful of these to make sure that it's not a 45-minute interview. So I just want a couple. The other thing that I can do is, let's say I want a different question than this one altogether. I could actually refresh that, so you'll see that took a change. Or if I wanted to make any adjustments, I could always edit those and make an edit just by typing here. So easy to add and adjust and tweak our questions. The other thing too is, let's say somebody's talking about paid Facebook marketing, and then they start to go into things like Google AdWords. And we go, that's kind of interesting. Let's ask a follow-on question. So our follow-on responses can be toggled on and off here if there's interesting tidbits that might come up in a candidate's response. The other thing is we can always add exercises. So as an example, for a coding exercise, we can upload that, set a time limit for that coding exercise, or for finance roles, we can also add things like pivot table tests or other Excel manipulation type tests that might be relevant to a particular job. We can also turn scoring on and off with these interview questions. So, you'll notice these are a little bit more company culture related, so not necessarily skills assessment. That might be a little harder for a read outside of, your internal company culture type questions. So let's just delete all of these down. So now we've got 4 questions, 3 skills based, one that's based on the culture. And then if we wanted to, we could always just add a custom. So let's say the hiring manager has 1 or 2 questions. They always want every person. So we can then invite our hiring manager too. So hiring manager at acme.corp. We could send that over to them. They can take a look at these. They can provide the feedback that they have for a particular question or questions, and we can get their feedback before we send those out. So we're ready. We can save this interview for future purposes, or we can save it to come back to later, or we can just send it right out to John. So let's say we send it out to John. John's going to get that interview, and then down the line, we'll get John's responses, and we'll be able to have an updated RM index that not only factors in their resume, but it will also start to show up in our interviews tab, which we don't have any that have come in for that particular job, but here's another example of one. So the interviews will start to show up here, and you'll be able to review the interviews. Our next segment, we'll look at how we can review interviews and also how we can even create filters based on candidates.